What's going on, everybody? This is Witz here, back with the power rankings for Week 4 of the MBL. And as you guys notice, there's a different icon here on the screen. We have that one guy, Ben, joining us.
Hello, how's everybody doing today?
He's taking over for Tailwind this week. With that, why don't we jump in?
All right, let's start, obviously, with number 12. For a little bit of backstory here, I'm going to be reading off Tailwind's rankings since I didn't have enough time to make my own. So I'll just be putting my thoughts over Tailwind's rankings this week. Anyways, starting off, both of you had Team Mythical at number 12. Why don't you start us off with that, Witz?
Team Mythical, they are the only team that is 0-4, and not only that, but they have a lot of consistency issues. They'll have a couple of really good plays here and there, but then everything else seems a little cluttered or a little rushed. They haven't found that perfect medium yet, and because of that, they've been struggling a little bit. They haven't really been adapting to the different situations, and they have been taken advantage of because of that.
Yeah, for sure. As much as I want to believe in Team Mythical, they're making it very, very hard for me to believe. And like you said, consistency is the key issue. They have incredible flashes of brilliance every now and then. Just this past week, Joe made a very, very hard read by ice punching into the Blastoise slot and catching the Landorus Therian on the switch-in and taking out 80% of his health. But after that, even this past week, they never had control after that point. They brought in a Garchomp immediately after Magazone went down when Pheromosa was in. And that shows one of two things. Either a belief that the Pheromosa could not touch the Garchomp and that they didn't think it had Ice Beam, or B, a lack of knowledge that Pheromosa generally runs Ice Beam, even if it's a predominantly physical set. And if it's the latter, that's a clear problem in their knowledge and lack of understanding of how the format's going to work out.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially since Blastoise and Pheromosa, both of them very, very commonly use Ice Beam, or just an Ice move in general on special sets. Well, Blastoise is mainly special anyway, but they mainly have ice-type attacks. And like Ben said, if it is the lack of knowledge, then it is a problem because you know the teams, well, at least you should know the teams by now, and when you're prepping for them, Pheromosa's moveset isn't really the biggest. So you can even see going through, Pheromosa, okay, specially, it gets Bug Buzz, Focus Blast, Ice Beam, all the hidden powers, stuff like that. Everything's already laid out. So I think if it is the latter, then their prep work needs to be a little bit more.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. Anyways, moving along, we have the first difference here, and that's you had Team Subs at 11, and Tailwind had Team Blue Hunnets at 11. Why don't we start with Subs?
So for Subs, again, it's a consistency issue, but not just that. Team Subs has played incredibly passively, and that, I think, is their downfall, especially in this multi-league where all of these matches go 8, 9, 10 turns total. If you're being too passive, you're not really going to get anywhere, especially when you have a team that has a Mega Lucario and a Mew. Mega Lucario, because of its speed, its stats, and its ability, which is adaptability, powering up its fighting and steel-type moves, it has priority on both sides, which are both stabs. It has setup on both sides. It has an incredible just move pool in general, plus it has access to Quick Guard, I believe. So, and if they use that effectively, they'll be able to actually go through. I mean, Mega Lucario was one of the top kill leaders last season, and it was almost banned this season. So because it's there, and I just don't think it's being used properly, and because of that, Team Subs is struggling.
Absolutely. I think you couldn't have put it better with them playing too passively. Just this last week, they one side, the side with Mew, I forget if that was Callum or Luke, just nothing on that side really did anything. They had some power. Hitmontop's Mach Punch isn't too weak, but other than that, that side just kind of sat there and was fat and just 8 hits and died. I mean, the other side had Mega Lucario and Raikou. That should have knocked up at least 4 kills, but like you said, I haven't seen Mega Lucario do what it did last season. And the problem for me with how they're using Mega Lucario is it's not doing one of the two things I always see it should be doing. One, which should be effectively trading with one of the opponent's more dangerous Pokemon or bulkier Pokemon. It should be clicking a strong move, whittling it down to really low HP, and then probably getting blown away for it, or taking it down and then getting blown away for it immediately anyways. If it does not doing that, it should be getting 2 or more kills every match. If it's not doing either of those two things, something is going wrong. And I don't know if it's the play, I don't know if it's the prep, but if it's both, Team Subs really needs to step up their game if they're going to want to have any chance of making the playoff this year.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, they had a tough run this week. They did face Team Dream Ball, but still, I mean, there's a lot of things that go along. They brought an incredibly defensive team, like we went over a bunch of times, and are going to bring something defensive. They have to have the offense to back it up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree more. Anyways, moving on. Tailwind had Team Blue Hunnets ranked at number 11, and you had them ranked number 9. So I guess I'll start this one off, say why I think Tailwind had 11. And once again, consistency is a huge factor in how I would personally rank things. And even with their strong win this past week, Team Blue Hornets, they haven't shown the consistency for me so far. They've played well, they've prepped well, they've shown an increasing knowledge in how they're playing, but it feels like it's coming on too slow for them to actually make any impact. But then again, it's only week 4 and we still have, what, 8 weeks left in the season? Or 7 weeks rather? And that's a long time, and if they keep improving, they could be a pretty serious threat, or maybe just a tougher opponent than people are giving them credit for. I will say, though, they are definitely making better plays each and every week, so that's always good to see.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I moved them up as much as I did, is because they're evolving, no pun intended, week by week. And because of that, everything's getting better. The prep's getting better. The play's getting better. Yeah, the consistency has been a little bit of an issue, and that is the main theme. Use not only their Pokemon to their strength, but use their opponent's Pokemon. They notice that, okay, Kyurem is base 95 speed. Okay, it's a little bit slower. Okay, once this Tailwind's up, we're going to outspeed everything on their team with Lele, with Deoxys, with Rotom, with all the other things. Speaking of Rotom, brilliant. Everybody's sleeping on DeBurners and on Toast-Cuz. Just because there's a Lele setting up with Calm Mind, you can't leave Rotom sitting in the back, just letting him just pop out cookies whenever it wants to, and then all of a sudden just come in and just obliterate everything on the field. This thing got 4 kills this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's one of the bigger strengths with Blue Hornets is that people tend to get so focused on their more dangerous threats, like you mentioned, Kapu Lele, Deoxys. And then they have these little sleeper Pokemon that kind of just slip through the cracks and just randomly make a big showing. Either way, I'm kind of excited to see how far Beatdown and GE can take this momentum. Also,
before we move on though, and I think we were going in the same way, and this kind of moves into the number 10 and 9 with Team Juice, but they brought the Aromatisse. Have to give us something for that, and right, Team Blue Hornets. I mean, you did kind of say that you do backflips on video.
So either in the next team prep or the next video, we better see some backflips, Blue Hornets. Otherwise, we're going to be very disappointed in you. Anyways, that is a great segue, as you mentioned, into your rank 10 team and Tailwind's rank 9 team, Team Juice.
So, Team Juice, I feel like we're also kind of holding them into such a high regard. Because the delivery isn't there, they're going down a little bit. Yes, their record is a little bit lower this season. They won the regular season last year. They went 7-1. Them together, they completely blew away the competition. And I feel like now that they're down to earth, things are a little bit different. People are adapting to their play style. And in order for them to come out on top, make top cut, make playoffs, they need to adapt to the way other people are adapting. People use this metaphor in baseball all the time, how the pitcher has to adapt to the hitter.
Yep.
In this case, the pitchers have adapted. It's time for the hitter to step up to the plate and make adjustments to hit that 0-2 curveball out of the park.
Yep. And I think last week was the quintessential realization of that for them, is something just did not feel right with their play. I don't know what it was. I can't say I know exactly what they were thinking. I watched the video and still something seemed off. Their play felt stunted, it felt slow, and that's not even counting the Trick Room slow. I'm just talking about it felt that once their Tailwind went down, they lost all the momentum they had and couldn't really recover. And the one turn they had a chance to recover, they couldn't do it. They made a too defensive of a play and it cost them the game. I don't really know what's going on with Kenny or Chimpact right now, if anything, but hopefully they can turn it around and make the rest of the season pretty good for them.
Yeah, like you said, once they lost the win from the Tailwind, though, everything just went backwards for them. They had the big momentum shooting forward, and then just the winds died down and they got halted on the sea.
Yep. Anyways, that brings us to the 8th ranked team and the second agreement from you and Tailwind. Both of you have Team Leaky at number 8. Team Leaky, to me, is the pinnacle of being absolutely, positively middle of the road. Their prep each week has been good, has been solid, has been consistent. Their play has been the same thing, solid, consistent. But they haven't made any super, game-defining plays that are just gonna wow people out of the park. They've made good ones, they've made things that made me go, oh, that's pretty cool. But they haven't made anything that makes my jaw drop. They haven't done anything that's spectacular or just mind-boggling. But they still have a 2-2 record and a solid differential. They're not, I don't know how to describe this. They're not pushing themselves as much as I think they could, I should say.
Yeah, I can see that. And I feel like they also have more to give. They've shown a lot of strategies already. They've shown the Z Celebrate, Baton Pass, and Stored Power. They've shown Blizzard spam. They've shown follow me shenanigans. They've shown this week with the quick guard. They've shown trick room. They have a lot to offer, and they're very diverse when it comes to their prep. However, just learn to adapt. Like we were talking about with Team Juice, adapting to the situation at hand is huge. Because they were able to do that this week, they were able to come out with the win against a very good team in Cyberbaz.
Absolutely. I think that's a good enough segue into our next section, which is the 7 through 4 slots. Now, there's a little bit weird going on here, and Witz, why don't you handle that one?
Yeah, we have a little bit of a disclaimer here. So, because of the situation that happened with Team Flawless and Team We Disney, which we'll get to when we get to their segments, because of the agreement that was made, because of their match, they had to stay the same. These 4 teams are in different spots than they otherwise might have been or would have been. They're listed here as 4 through 7, but we're just going to talk about them as individual teams as opposed to different placements here on this list. We know they are better than the bottom 4, and we know that they are not quite up to the top 3, but they are in this area.
We're just going to go from bottom to top on Witz's order just because it's convenient that way. So in that case, let's start with, well, Team Jamie. And there's
Mr. Mime!
Yep, pretty much. Mr. Mime and Porygon Z put on a show at the expense of Team Not Scald, and there's no polite way to put this. This was a slaughter, and it was not pretty.
Yeah, it was absolute domination. They pretty much took up the baton, said, follow me, let's go down the yellow brick road, we head on back to Kansas. I mean, Blue Charge, the only breath of life that they gave Not Scald their tailwind.
There was
Mr. Mime comes in with the wide guard, takes away anything they could have gotten, and wipes up everything.
The tailwinded Mega Garchomp Earthquake was the only way Not Scald could have crawled back into that game, and they were prepared for it. They could have made a Dragon Claw play, but I don't even think that would have killed Porygon Z at that point. It was literally the only out they had, and Jamie was prepared for it. There's really not much we could say about this week for them. It was a beatdown.
Oh, I think we kind of talked about everything we needed to talk about there.
Yeah.
Because Jamie, they've been consistent the whole time. They had one slip up. They're progressing very, very nicely, and I'm looking forward to what they have to offer in these next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward.
Yeah, the 3-headed monster they were last season is back, and I'm frankly worried for everyone in their path. Porygon Z needs to be stopped, and I don't know if it will be. Speaking of monsters from the previous season, next up we have Team Cyberbaz, the runners-up in the championship match last season.
Team Cyberbaz, as of late, has been a tad underwhelming, only because their prep is great. Their play has been a little inconsistent. I only say that because these two are very, very seasoned veterans. And if they're missing something like safety goggles Electabuzz, when it's inhale for about 3 or 4 turns, that's big. That's really big.
And it was even bigger because they ended up wasting a turn with Breloom clicking Spore on the Electabuzz. And if had they known, they might have gotten a little bit of momentum back. Even then, there was the turn where Jirachi went for Z, I forget if it's Celebrate or Happy Hour. I never remember.
Happy Hour. Yeah,
Happy Hour.
Happy Hour.
Under Trick...
Yeah, the South Korea event.
Right, under Trick Room, when there was Necrozma out. And Leaky has shown each week that they bring Dark Pulse Necrozma. It's a good alternate attacking option, and it hits everything that basically Psychic doesn't on their team. And really, if you're boosting your speed in Trick Room, something's not going to make sense there. Even if you have something like a supportive Purloin on the field as well. That said, good stuff to Leaky for capitalizing on Cyberbaz bringing the Purloin. And I don't know if that was great prep on Cyberbaz's part, because Purloin, after like turn 2, was just a liability. It kind of just sat there and wasted turns. And as we mentioned in previous analyses, every turn in a multi-battle here is crucial. They're so fast-paced, they're arguably as fast or even faster than VGC. So if you waste a turn, you're basically already behind. Yeah, and I understand the threat of Purloin. It has the same aspect of Whimsicott in that sense. Because of the threat of Prankster Encore, teams focus on what moves they have to click and what they want to click. However, in this game, because of the prep of Leaky, it ended up being a liability. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I don't think it was bad prep, but I definitely think that after they saw that Ambipom had Quick Guard, they should have just maybe switched Purloin out, got it out of there, saved it for later when Ambipom wouldn't be there. Yeah, because they could have used it for more fake-out support and fake-out pressure. Yes, agree. Anyways, I think that about wraps it up for Cyberbaz, but hopefully the second place team will kick it up in a couple notches in the coming weeks and maybe clean up some of those inconsistencies we've been seeing these past few matches. Next up, we have the team that we won't really have much to say about because of the whole agreement in Team Flawless. So, due to some unforeseen circumstances that involved teams being leaked outside of their control, everyone came to an agreement that neither team should be moved from their previous power ranking spot. And as such, both teams had to team build about 3 hours or so for the match, and that unfortunately favored more experienced players like Shofu and Duncan, and not less experienced players like Beryl and Angus. This isn't a knock either teams, by the way. I still think Flawless absolutely deserves to be in this general area of power rank. They've been surprising many people, including myself this season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, through their plays in the past with Magirna in week 1, and just how they've been able to transition through every other week, they're getting stronger and stronger, whether it was the string shot play, so the Hoopa Unbound could almost bring it back, and then they just ran into some tough opponents in We Disney this week, and because of unfortunate circumstances, they weren't able to come out on top. It ended up being a 5-0 loss, but because of the agreement, they aren't losing any differential points, much like they're not dropping or going higher here in power rankings.
Anyway, I think that about wraps it up for Team Flawless. So next up, we have Team Not Scald, and oh, how the saying goes, pride goeth before a fall, and what a fall it was.
This is the definition of hubris.
Joey and Envy have been kind of cruising through the first 3 weeks, and then they came ahead to the three-headed monster, and that three-headed monster was Porygon Z. But I don't think that bad loss is necessarily a bad thing for them. I think they were on Cloud 9, causing them to become a little overconfident, and that's a bad thing. So when you take this hard of an L, you're going to rethink how you play in the coming weeks, and that's going to make you prep a little bit better, play a little bit safer, play a little bit smarter, prep a little bit more careful, and maybe take a closer look at everything. And as much as I love Joey and Envy for bringing some of the most fire sets I have seen in general, I think when it comes down to brass tacks, you need to value consistency over showiness.
Yeah, I feel like the long break is going to be a hit or miss for some teams. Like some teams, like We Disney, are the ones higher up. They might lose some momentum as opposed to the lower teams who have some time to regroup, rethink, and really buckle down and get their act together. But it could also benefit those teams that with a lot of momentum as well, like the Jamies, like the We Disney, like Drinking Birds, Dreamball, all of those guys who have been on a tear as of late. And I think it'll spark a whole new different kind of league.
Absolutely. And speaking of Dreamball, Disney, and Drinking Birds, it's time for the top 3.
Up top.
Yep. So let's start with the number 3, and just a small note, this is the first time you and Tailwind have agreed on the top 3, is it not?
That is correct.
So, excuse me, Team Drinking Birds. This is the team that I feel kind of came out of nowhere. A lot of people in the VGC community will know T-Man and Lorky for being very accomplished and very good VGC players, but to the casual viewer who just follows singles and stuff, they wouldn't really know who either of these two are. So them being in the top 3 might be a little bit of a surprise, but they have played fantastic throughout these 4 weeks. A little bit of repetitiveness in their team prep, similar sets across the weeks, but that changed this past week when they faced off against Mythical. First and foremost, Choice Scarf, Water Spout, Blastoise.
This is the definition of the analogy that I said before. They stepped up to the plate, ball over the fence. They learned to adapt in such a quick manner, and it shows this week with a huge 4-0 win.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily need to adapt. They were 2-1, and yet they decided, hey, we're getting a little lackluster with our team prep. Let's push ourselves to the next level. And it showed. Team Mythical never had a chance to really regain momentum after turn 1. The Savage Spin Out, nodding the instant kill on Mega Medicham. The Ice Beam from Pheromosa rampaging through the other side. Again, the Choice Scarf, Water Spout, Blastoise. Nobody really would expect that. You'd think Blastoise, when paired with something like Pheromosa, would be Fake Out support, Follow Me support, just general bulk. No, they came out all guns blazing this week.
The prep with the Ninetales to underspeed the Cresselia in Trick Room. Let me just run this by you real quick. The Fat Duck in Cresselia has base 85 speed. Yes, 85. It's pretty fast for a fat mod. Ninetales is base 100 speed. So in order for Ninetales to even have the opportunity to underspeed a Cresselia, it has to be a negative speed nature and has to have at least 23 IVs in speed or lower. So anything from 0 to 23, and it will underspeed a neutral speed, 0 speed, neutral nature Cresselia. The fact that this Ninetales undersped is ridiculous in Trick Room. Absolutely ridiculous.
So here's the actual brilliance of this. Even if Team Mythical decided to run a 0 speed, 0 EV, 0 IV, minus speed nature Cresselia, even if they do that with a 0 speed, 0 IV, 0 EV, minus speed nature Ninetales, they won't underspeed in Trick Room, but they'll outspeed outside of Trick Room. So there is no downside to running this Ninetales.
And speaking of innovation, we're coming up to the gods.
Oh, man. Oh, are we in a laboratory or a Pokemon battle? Because these guys are mad scientists. These guys are nuts.
Have these guys been working with Jimmy or Dexter lately? I mean...
Number 2 is Team Dreamball. I don't know how this is fair, but they got VGC World Champion and 3rd place at that same tournament on the same team in a format very similar to VGC. It boggles the mind, and what also boggles the mind is the kind of nonsense they've been bringing. Just this past week, they brought the absolute fire that was Aguav Berry Fling Strafty flinging to a weakness policy Bronzong with a nature that will get healed by the Aguav Berry and not get confused. A max HP, max special attack Bronzong. Yeah, and it's not even just that they've been dominating with. After the week 1 loss to Not Scald, it's been 3 weeks of just complete and utter domination. There's no other way to put it.
5-0 after 5-0 after 5-0.
Yeah, and here's the scary part. It's been a sweep each time, but it's been a different sweep each time. It was Swagger, Zygarde, and Misty Terrain. It was Calm Mind, Tapu Fini, and I forget exactly what it was this past week. It's been a couple days, but it was just another dominating win.
And each one was done with setup, so I mean, teams should know what the deal is when it comes to these. They seem to rely on setup, however, in a sense of they know when to use it.
Yeah, it's not that the teams aren't going to know what's going to come. They know what's going to come at this point. The problem is when, how, and with what Pokemon. Because it can be Tapu Fini, it could be Drifblim, it could be Zygarde, it could be Bronzong, which nobody expects to randomly do a bunch of damage to your team. But it really all depends on what their team prep is each week. And that is the scariest thing.
Agreed.
And that brings us to the number 1, Team We Disney. The most Disney men in the business are also the only undefeated men in the business. 4-0. That's a pretty tough record to beat.
Reasons why they're up at number 1. They've been the most consistent outside of Dream Ball this whole season. With the weird circumstances that happened this week, they ended up getting a 5-0. However, it wasn't just because of the teams that they faced. However, We Disney found a way to neutralize the synergy of that team. They neutralized the Galvantula entirely. I don't even think the Galvantula got a move off.
I don't think it did either.
It was sky dropped, and when it wasn't sky dropped, it was protected on.
And the other scary thing is, it's not just Team Flawless they've been doing that to. They've been doing that to everybody they've come across. Team Mythical comes to mind. When Team Mythical started setting up with their stockpile Guzzlord, We Disney immediately recognized that as a threat and remembered that they had soaked it with Lantern earlier. And then at that point, when Tapu Bulu came in, they realized, oh wait, we can kind of set up in this thing's face, and just went from there. They are, outside of Dream Ball, outside of Drinking Birds, they are the most adaptive team when it comes to changing your plans on the spot. And I think that's why Team We Disney has been so consistent so far, and why they're 4-0.
Exactly. Well, I'm looking forward to how everything turns out. That is the end of the power rankings for this week. Ben, thank you very much for coming aboard, especially at the last minute. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. I had a blast doing this.
And be sure to follow him on Twitter.
It's in the image. I am at Heimdall on Twitter.
Yeah, so follow him, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what your rankings are. Let us know if there's anything we can change. We always appreciate the constructive criticism. And again, signing off, this is Witz.
I'm Ben.
And thank you very much. Enjoy your stay.
Have a good day.